Well, I think the thing to remember is that, things like speculation and flipping, they're not the cause of our housing crisis, of our deep unaffordability crisis. They're a symptom of it. What causes our housing crisis is a severe shortage of housing. In major cities like Vancouver, we just don't have enough homes. That's what makes things like speculation and flipping attracting to investors. People aren't doing stuff like that for things, they only do that when they think prices are going to keep on going up. So this, I think, is a reasonable step for the government to take because there is a lot of public concern about that. So it does address that, but it doesn't address the underlying cause of housing unaffordability, which is one of the major drivers of unaffordability across the board in our society. That will take really taking serious steps to increase our housing supply and address our housing shortage.
So is it in that case, and I'm going to jump back to you, Brendon, about the unintended consequences. Before we do that, Peter, to your point around simply boosting housing stock, we have heard from experts, for example, Tom Davidoff and others saying that there is supply that's coming online. Certainly, though, for a lot of people, it's never fast enough, is it? So where are we in terms of getting that supply onto the market?
Yeah, that's actually absolutely a great point. And that's one of the reasons why I think, for example, measures to address housing affordability now are urgent because it will take time for housing to be built, especially in the city of Vancouver, where it's almost impossible to build new housing because of the very high levels of, just how difficult the city makes it to build housing. It takes, I started getting involved in housing advocacy 6 or 7 years ago now, and buildings that I was first advocating for 6 or 7 years ago still aren't built. So it takes time. So that's why, measures like putting money into people's pockets ASAP, building non-market housing ASAP for people who need it the most are important and urgent steps. But the fundamental causes will take a real rethinking of how we build housing in our society to make sure that there is enough housing for everybody, because right now that's just not the case.
Brendon, I saw you nodding along to some of what Peter was saying there. Can we go back to the unintended consequences you think may come from this flipping tax?
Sure, and it's kind of related to supply as well. In this case, what's available to buy in the market rather than what we're building in the future. But I've already heard from realtors that I talk to at the start of every month about how their markets are going. I've already heard from realtors saying they have clients that we're going to list and now aren't going to list because of the flipping tax. Not even necessarily because paying the tax is so onerous. It's sort of there's not a lot of profits to be had over the past 2 years just because prices have been really flat in most markets. But also, I'm kind of curious about how much auditing work is going to be done by the government. The administrative costs of this tax must be enormous. Not only do you have to check that all of the sort of expenses that you can deduct for the tax are legitimate, but you also have to check on well, did you actually get married this year? Do you have a legitimate reason to be on this exempt list? All that takes a costly kind of administrative programs for the government. So there's just a lot of very clunky ways this tax works. The other, I think, is there's already a 1-year anti-flipping tax from the federal government. It's not clear to me who gets paid first. If you have to pay the federal government or the provincial government first, can you deduct the anti-flipping tax from your profit on a flip in BC? So a lot of real uncertainty again for a tax that really doesn't do anything for affordability.